Hi guys, my name is Chloe and today I'm going to be doing my January wrap up. So January was quite a big reading month for me. I did quite well. I read 11 books in total and this was 4,414 pages overall. So a very good reading month to kick off the year. So to begin with, I'm going to go through a few statistics, not too many. I just find them interesting and I like tracking different things, and then we'll get into the books that I've read. In terms of age categories, I read 5 YA, 1 new adult and 5 adult books. Moving into the genres, I read 9 fantasies, 1 historical fiction and 1 mystery. So I'm just going to go through the books in the order I read them. So the first book that I read was The Dying Game by Asa Avdic. Yeah, this is just a little short thriller, just over 200 pages. I picked this one up at the end of December because I wanted something to get me into the new year, but not without taking too much of my time in January. I gave this one 3.5 stars. I thought it was okay. It had a really interesting premise. This book, we follow Anna, who has been recruited by an agency to go to this island with a bunch of strangers, stage her own death and observe what happens to them afterwards by observing them in underground tunnels and behind the walls in this house, and just to see what happens if a murder takes place on this retreat. And I thought this was really interesting because I do really love thrillers and I like Agatha Christie. So it's very interesting to see a book where it's like, okay, we know you're going to die, you're going to pretend to die, let's see what these characters do. Unfortunately, the first half was really gripping and the second half was quite forgettable. So whilst I rated this one slightly higher for the premise, I probably wouldn't recommend it. If it wasn't that unique that I've read before, I would probably have given this one a 2.5, a 3 maybe. So yeah, in the end it was a bit disappointing, but I definitely loved the idea behind this one. So the next book I read in January, I read was an ebook, so I don't have anything to show for the moment, and that was Olympus. I've forgotten the author, that's kind of bad. But yeah, I read Olympus. This is a graphic novel which was a webcomic, and it's all about mythology, and more specifically it's a Hades and Persephone retelling. I gave this one 4.5 stars just because I don't read a lot of graphic novels, so it's really hard for me to give one 5 stars. It has to be amazing, and I feel like there were some unanswered questions that I wanted to see, which hopefully we'll get into in the second volume. The art style in this one is absolutely gorgeous. Every art piece is incredible. I love all of the different characters, how colourful they are on the page, their personalities, and also how each character was styled. And yeah, I will definitely be reading the second instalment when it comes out. So the third book I read in January was the Shadow in the Ember by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the prequel series to From Blood and Ash, and I gave this one 4 stars in the end. I was really looking forward to this one because I adore the From Blood and Ash series and all the characters in there, and this one I really had high hopes for. It was still amazing. The world building was great. We got some backstory to locations and characters. So that was great. I really enjoyed Sarah's character in this. I thought she's definitely more headstrong than Poppy, so she was a lot more get into the action from the first page sort of girl, which was kind of nice. I just found myself really missing the dynamic between Poppy and Hawk in the original series, and I just enjoy some of those characters more in those books, which is why this one didn't get a 5. But as always, there was a really big cliffhanger because every book I've read by Jennifer L. Armentrout has a really big cliffhanger. and so I will definitely be picking up the second instalment in this series. So the fourth book I read in January was Gideon the Ninth by Tamsyn Muir. I think that's how you say that one. So this one is about lesbian necromancers in space, basically. So we follow Gideon, who's been recruited by her nemesis, Harrow, to accompany her as she goes through this trial to become a really powerful necromancer known as Lictor. Yeah, they hate each other, so it's really interesting to read about, and once they turn up and start going through these trials, things start to go wrong and dead bodies start turning up, and not in the usual way that they would in a book when you're talking about necromancers. So it's really good. This one, weirdly enough, gave me Throne of Glass vibes, just because of the trials and the champion aspect of it, kind of like that. And Gideon gave me major Selena vibes, just the badassiness and sarcasm, and yeah, I really liked the resemblance I found between those two books. I did put this one off for ages, because I'm not a big sci-fi reader, and this seemed to be a sci-fi book, that's how it was advertised, but I was pleased to find out that it's more of a fantasy book just set in space, so I got on with this one a lot more than I thought I would, and I'm definitely excited to pick up the sequel next month. Oh, and I think I forgot to mention I gave this one 5 stars. So the fifth book I read in January was Jane Seymour, The Haunted Queen by Alison Weir. I gave this one 5 stars as well. I adored this one from start to finish. In this book we follow Jane Seymour, Henry VIII's third wife, and we follow her as she goes through some family struggles, as she's a handmaiden to Catherine of Aragon, Henry's first wife, and how she then has to put up with Anne Boleyn, Henry's second wife. And I thought this one was really good because it sort of re-summarised the first 2 books again. We got to see more of the other queens, but from a new perspective, from the point of Jane. And Jane seemed a bit more down to earth, and she was more family orientated than the other 2 queens were, so it was really nice to get a new perspective. And I don't really read historical fiction, but so far I've really been adoring this series, and I'm hoping to finish this series sometime this year. But yeah, I really liked this one. So the 6th book I read in January was Skulduggery Pleasant Bedlam by Landy. This is book 13 in the Skulduggery Pleasant series, so I can't tell you what this one is about. But the Skulduggery Pleasant series as a whole is one of my all-time favourite series ever. And in this series we follow a skeleton detective Skulduggery and his companion Valkyrie Kane. And they go on these adventures and save the world and defeat bad guys. There's loads of magic in this. It's kind of an urban fantasy, and Landy's writing is amazing, and these books are packed with so much humour in them. They're always such a pleasure to read. So this one I did give 5 stars to, because there hasn't been a Skulduggery book that I have not given 5 stars to, but I absolutely adored this one, and I can't wait to continue with the next one. So the next book I read was an audiobook, and this was The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart, and I gave this one, I gave this one 4.5 stars. I thought this one was genius. It's a fantasy book where the Emperor builds creatures or constructs from bone shards that he's harvested from the population to power them. And also in this world the islands are slowly starting to sink. So this is a multi-POV fantasy where we're following a cast of characters. I think it's about 4 or 5 characters in the end, but the main ones being Lynn, the Emperor's daughter, as she is on a quest to remember her memories. She's lost some memories, and then also research her father's magic so she can do this magic and then one day become Emperor. And the other prominent POV that we follow is Jovis, and he is a smuggler. And he's on a quest to find his, I think it's either wife or partner. She was taken ages ago, and he hasn't been able to find her, and he's on a quest to find her. On the way he finds this adorable little creature called Nephi, which is this little water pet thing. I kind of imagined him almost like Vaporeon from Pokemon, and their little relationship is just adorable and one of the best parts about the book. But the magic system in this one was very unique, and I'm hoping to get to the second book soon because I've already got it on Audible. So looking forward to that one. The 8th book I read in January was Gilded by Marissa Meyer. This is the really gorgeous Fairy Loot edition that I've got of this, and I gave this book 5 stars. This is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling, and in this book we follow Serilda, who has been cursed by the god of lies, and so she has this really bad habit of telling all of these tales. She's really good at storytelling because of this curse that she has, and one evening when she's sleeping in bed, she hears this noise, and it's these 2 children of the forest, or sprites I think. They're trying to run away from the hunt, which are these demon ghost army type thing that comes every full moon, and so she saves them, and in doing so he asks, the leader, so the Urchlin, asks, why are you out this late at night, because he wants these 2 sprites, and she's like, well, I was out collecting straw because I can spin straw into gold, because that's the first lie she can think of. And so every full moon he captures her, takes her back to his ghost castle, and she has to spin straw into gold. Luckily the resident poltergeist is there on hand to help her out, and yeah, the story just takes off from there, and it's lovely. It's so whimsical and like a fairy tale, but it also has those dark elements that I really enjoyed, and I can't wait. There is a sequel to this one coming out, I think either at the end of this year or next year, and I'm definitely going to be picking that one up. So the last 3 books I read in January were the first 3 books in the Wayward Children series by Seanan McGuire. These were a reread for me because I've read the first 4 before, and I want to read them all before the latest book. So I've got Every Heart a Doorway. In this one we follow a bunch of characters, a bunch of children who have gone through doorways to their perfect magical worlds, and then they've found that they've either been kicked out or had to come back to our world, and their struggles of dealing with that. And so they end up at Eleanor West's home for wayward children, which is this I guess orphanage or private school where these children go to be with children who are going through the same experience. Unfortunately things start going wrong, and a couple of murders happen, and the kids are on a quest to find out who's killing the children and what's happening. And yeah, I love these books. They're really short, they're little novellas, they're very easy to read, and they're so whimsical as well, even if they are dark in places, which is a theme for a few of these books, whimsical but dark in places. But yeah, I gave this one 5 stars. The second instalment, Down Amongst Sticks and Bone, I also gave 5 stars to. In this one we follow Jack and Jill, which we meet in the first book, but this is following them as they discover their world, the Moors, for the first time. Their world is very dark, horror, sci-fi-esque world, where we've got a vampire lord in charge of one side of the wall, and then this doctor, almost like Frankenstein, is also there. So one of the twins ends up with the vampire and one of them ends up with the doctor, and how their experience differ in the Moors. And this one was also really good. It's probably just about my favourite one so far, but we'll see as the series goes. And the last book I read in January was Beneath the Sugar Sky, and this is the 3rd book in the Wayward Children series. This one I didn't enjoy quite as much as the first 2. I gave this one 3.5 stars in the end, and I think this was mainly because my favourite characters weren't present in this one, and I found Cora and Rinny, I think was her name, the new characters we got to see in this, a tad annoying in places. But I did adore visiting some of the different worlds in this one again. We got to see Confection, which is kind of like this Candyland, Sweetland place. That was really interesting, and really nice change compared to some of the darker worlds we've been to before. But overall I think so far this is just the weakest one for me. I still adored the whimsy and the writing and following these children as they go on their adventures. But that's the good thing about this series, is every book is kind of different apart from a few characters that carry across. So it means in the next book that could be another 5 stars again, or I could not enjoy it. It could go either way, and that's one thing that I really love about this series. So those are all the books that I read in January. Let me know down below if you've read any of these and what did you think, and also let me know what your first read in February is going to be. And that's all for now. Bye!